Hello everyone, it's Brother Randy with SourMilkMinistries. Welcome to video 16, Untwisting Matthew 11:28. Jesus is not your Sabbath rest. Now if the title sounds familiar, it's because video 7 was entitled Untwisting Hebrews 4. Jesus is not your Sabbath rest. Yes, unfortunately, anytime I challenge someone to pick up this book and show me where it's actually written that Jesus is our Sabbath's rest, those are the two passages I get in return. However, there's one big problem with that, and it's that neither one of those passages actually say that. So, how does the mainstream church twist Matthew 11:28? Well, let's go find out. Matthew 11:28 through 30, New Revised Standard Version.
Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light.
Now, as I've already mentioned, video 7 also addresses this issue of Jesus being our Sabbath rest. In fact, I actually speak of Matthew 11:28 in that video. So what I'd like to do is to play a short clip from video 7. It's under 5 minutes long, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Not surprisingly, this passage is also the source of much contention between the mainstream church and the Torah community. And that's because the mainstream church will cite this passage, often in conjunction with Hebrews 4, to teach the masses that Jesus is their Sabbath rest. This is a classic example of eisegesis, that is reading into the text something that's simply not there. I plan on doing a separate teaching on Matthew 11:28 through 30, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. I do want to point out that there are some in the Torah community who will state that we don't find rest now in the Messiah. There's a very prominent ministry that actually has a teaching on Hebrews 4 in which they promote this idea that this rest is the millennial reign, that this is a future rest. We haven't entered into it yet. Now, obviously, we are waiting for our redemption. However, we have entered into his rest. Take my yoke upon you. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. So I do have rest in the Messiah. I have found rest for my soul. So I respectfully disagree that I haven't entered into his rest. I have entered into his rest, but certainly not a Sabbath rest. I think if the Most High God were actually going to change words he spoke like thunder and wrote in stone, he would have mentioned it. I mean, the whole idea is folly. He puts his word above his name. If you can't trust in words that the Most High God spoke like thunder and wrote in stone, then what are his words really worth? It's absurd to even suggest that he would change his word. But if he were to do something so unheard of, I think he would have mentioned it. I don't think you would have to twist passages. Do you see the word Sabbath in here anywhere? I think he would have spelled it out. I think we would find these words strung together in one sentence, that the Messiah is our Sabbath rest now. We don't need to keep the Sabbath. I think he might have mentioned that. It doesn't exist in the scriptures. It doesn't exist in Matthew 11. It doesn't exist in Hebrews 4. It doesn't exist in Colossians 2. Nonetheless, I am resting in the Messiah. I have been sealed, and I have been given the Spirit as a guarantee of my redemption. Now, that's the end of the clip. So let's get back on track here. Okay, so if Matthew 11:28 isn't talking about the Sabbath, and it's not, again, do you see the word Sabbath in there anywhere? It doesn't exist. But nonetheless, it doesn't stop people from citing this verse in particular to answer my question of, where does the scripture say that Jesus is our Sabbath rest? You keep saying that he's your Sabbath and that you rest in Jesus every day. I'm sorry, but that's just simply not true. First of all, what is a Sabbath's rest? It's a day that you cease from your physical toil, and particularly in reference to your occupation. You don't go to work. You don't toil in your fields. You don't cause others to work. A Sabbath's rest is a physical rest. And you suppose every day is a Sabbath? We do not have a rest from our physical toil in the Messiah. That is, unless you stay home every day and don't work. Is that what you're telling me? No, of course not. Now, some people want to say, oh, well, we rest from our toils of trying to work for our salvation. You were never tasked with working for your salvation to begin with, so how can you be resting from something you were never assigned to do? So don't tell me that he's your Sabbath. If that were true, you'd never do any physical toil. The Sabbath's rest is a physical thing. So, what is he telling us? What is he really saying here? He tells you what he's saying. Take my yoke. Learn from me. Versus who? Versus the scribes and the Pharisees. Versus the commandments and doctrines of men who lay heavy burdens upon you. Matthew 23, verse 1 through 4. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, do whatever they teach you and follow it. But do not do as they do, for they do not practice what they teach. No, on the contrary, verse 4, they tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on the shoulders of others, but they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. This is what the Messiah is talking about when he says, come to me, and I will give you rest. You know why? Because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's not heavy. It's not a heavy burden like these scribes and Pharisees are putting upon you. That's what Matthew 11:28 is talking about. It's not talking about not keeping one of his very 10 commandments as if that's the burden. The scriptures tell us that his commandments are not a burden. He's talking about the yoke of the scribes and the Pharisees, the very yoke that he deliberately challenged. Why do you think he was in their face constantly? Because they added to his word. They made his word a burden. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about his perfect commandments, his ways, which are easy and light. And mind you, his ways include the law of Moses. That's because the law of Moses are the laws of God. The problem is not with the law of Moses. The problem is with men adding to it. Look what he tells us right here in Matthew 23. The scribes and Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, meaning they're reading from the Torah.
Therefore, whatever they teach you. In fact, the manuscript in Hebrew says whatever he teaches you, referring to Moses. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the context. The Messiah is telling us, telling them, that whatever is taught from the Torah, do it and follow it. And that has not changed, my friend. But don't do as they do, for they do not practice what they teach. This is a fundamental problem in Christendom. They think the laws of Moses are bad, when in fact they are the laws of God. It's the laws of men which are bad. The Messiah isn't telling you he's going to give you rest from his perfect law. He's telling you he's going to give you rest from the commandments and doctrines of men. But even so, when you talk about obeying the law, people laugh at you and scoff. Oh, well, do you boil a kid in its mother's milk? Do you have a fence on your roof? Do you mix two kinds of fabrics? You're not mocking me, you're mocking the commandments of God. Just because you don't have a clear understanding of why we're told not to do something. It's kind of funny how you want to talk about these lesser commandments as if they're on equal terms with the 10 commandments he spoke like thunder and wrote in stone. You know, there are greatest and least commandments. So if you want to talk about the commandments of God with me, let's start with the greatest ones, okay? And what is the greatest commandment of all? Love God. And the second is like it, love your neighbor. Those are not new commandments. They come from the Old Testament. Nevertheless, how do the scriptures define loving God? By obeying his commandments. They go hand in hand. If you love God, you will obey God. And if you don't obey God, then the scriptures say you hate him. You hate him. We show our love to God by our obedience. It's not legalism. No one's trying to be saved by their works. But if you are saved, if you truly know God, then you will obey him. And if you don't, the scriptures call you a liar. Now, before we leave Matthew 23, I want to jump down here to verse 15, which describes one of the 7 woes to the scribes and the Pharisees. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross sea and land to make a single convert, and you make the new convert twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. Indeed, the scribes and Pharisees would cross sea and land to make proselytes, converts. And one of those lands was Antioch. This is a reference to Acts 15, which we're going to go to next, because it speaks of a yoke. Why are you placing this yoke on us that neither we or our fathers could bear? And of course, what does the mainstream church do? They say, see, the laws of God are bondage. No, that's not the yoke that Acts 15 is speaking about. And we're going to see that for ourselves. However, before we do, I want to make a comment about verse 15 here in this word, hell. The word there isn't hell. The word is Gehenna. which unfortunately the typical Christian has never heard of Gehenna, a literal place south of Jerusalem. Contrary to what you've heard, how Jesus spoke more about hell than he did heaven, well, I got news for you. Jesus never spoke about hell a day in his life, and in fact, his name isn't even Jesus. His name is Yeshua. Jesus, Yeshua, only spoke of Gehenna, or the place of the dead. Hades in the Greek, Sheol in the Hebrew, which translators have twisted into hellfire. In video 1, I said I wanted to talk about 3 false doctrines, the Sabbath being the first. Well, hell is one of the other 2. I'm sure there's many of you who find what I'm saying hard to believe. People, they laugh at me, just like they laugh about the Sabbath. You laugh at things you don't understand. Lord willing, I will be doing videos on hell, including the rich man and Lazarus story. Oh, that's not a parable. That's a real story because it uses a name. The name Lazarus represents Abraham's Gentile servant. And speaking of names, would you like to know the names of the rich man's 5 brothers? Because I can tell you what they are. Hell is a blasphemous lie. The wages of sin is death. Our Creator does not roast people in fire. It's blasphemy. You should rejoice at someone telling you that hell is unbiblical, because it is. That should be music to your ears. And if it's not, brother, you got a problem. You got a real problem. And as much as I love to continue talking about it, that's a video for another day. Now, let's go over to Acts 15 and continue on.
Acts chapter 15, for the sake of time, I will be reading select verses between 1 and 21. I would encourage you to go back and read the entire passage. Verse 1, Then certain individuals came down from Judea and were teaching the brothers, Unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. And Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them. Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go up to Jerusalem to discuss this question with the apostles and the elders. Verse 4, When they came to Jerusalem, they were welcomed by the church and the apostles and the elders, and they reported all that God had done with them. But some believers who belonged to the sect of the Pharisees stood up and said, It is necessary for them to be circumcised in order to keep the law of Moses. It is necessary for them. We're talking about the Gentiles. We're talking about the conversion of the Gentiles. Can these Gentiles be saved without first being circumcised and following the law of Moses? That's the debate here in Acts 15. And that is what the Jerusalem Council met to discuss. Verse 10, now this is Peter speaking. Now therefore, why are you putting God to the test by placing on the neck of the disciples a yoke that neither our ancestors nor we have been able to bear? So what's this yoke that the sect of the Pharisees and these individuals from the circumcision party who came down from Judea are trying to put on the disciples? Now, keep in mind, a disciple simply means a pupil, a student. If you belong to Christ, you're a disciple. Go and make disciples out of all men. You've put on the yoke of Yeshua. That's what we just read in Matthew 11. He said, put on my yoke. Learn from me. Learn my way. So that's what it means to be a disciple. You're a student. So what yoke are we talking about here? It's a matter of salvation. We know that to be true because look at verse 11. On the contrary, we believe that we will be saved through the grace of the Lord Jesus just as they will. There is the context. Don't put this yoke on these Gentiles that they have to be circumcised and they have to follow the law of Moses as a prerequisite of salvation. That is not what the Scriptures teach. Romans chapter 9, verses 30 through 32, New International Version. What then shall we say? That the Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness, in other words, they didn't pursue the Torah, they didn't have the law, they have obtained it, a righteousness that is by faith, but the people of Israel who pursued the law as a way of righteousness have not obtained their goal? Why not? Because they pursued it not by faith, but if it were by works, they stumbled over the stumbling stone. They pursued it not by faith, but if it were by works. And these people who came down in Acts 15 were trying to get these Gentile converts to follow the law for their salvation. That's why the Messiah said in Matthew that you go out, you cross sea and land to make a proselyte, and then you make him twice the child of Gehenna as yourselves. It's why he said, if your righteousness doesn't exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you're lost, because they're lost. This is why the apostles stood up against these Judaizers and said, no, we believe that we will be saved through grace, just as they will. Stop putting a yoke on the neck of these disciples that neither our ancestors nor we have been able to bear. And that yoke is not obedience to the laws of God. It's trying to follow the commandments and doctrines of men who place heavy burdens on you, who tell you that you have to be circumcised to be saved. That's the yoke of Acts 15. Now, let's read verses 19 through 21, which is the conclusion of the Jerusalem Council and the letter, the instructions that they gave to the Gentiles. Verse 19, therefore I have reached a decision that we should not trouble those Gentiles who are turning to God, but that we should write to them to abstain only from things polluted by idols and from fornication and from whatever has been strangled and from blood. Now I'm going to stop right here before I read verse 21 because this is where the mainstream church stops. They never read verse 21 when they're telling the masses that Acts 15 tells us that there are only 4 things that a Gentile needs to take away from the Old Testament. All we need to worry about is staying away from things polluted by idols and from fornication and from whatever has been strangled and from blood. We don't need to worry about keeping the Sabbath. And why is that? Well, because we're not told that in Acts 15. We're just given these 4 things. Well, we're also not told not to murder. We're not told not to steal. We're not told not to have other gods. Does that mean we get to do all of those things too? Of course not. You know why? Because this is not an exclusive list of the things the Gentiles need to do. This is the things that the Gentiles needed to focus on immediately. Rather than be troubled by Judaizers telling them they needed to be circumcised, they said, listen, this is what you Gentiles need to do. Clean up your act. Stop participating in the sacrifice to idols. That's what's meant here by things polluted to idols. Stop fornicating. Stop participating in these pagan practices of strangling things and from blood. That's what you need to worry about, Gentile. Verse 21, for in every city for generations past, Moses has had those who proclaim him, for he has been read aloud every Sabbath in the synagogues. So what does that mean? That means that these Gentiles will indeed learn the laws of God that were dictated through Moses. But until they do, these are the 4 things that they need to initially work on. This is what you need to do, Mr. Gentile. Cut all this other stuff out. You'll learn what you need to know in the synagogues every Shabbat. That's what Acts 15 is saying. That's the conclusion of the Jerusalem Council. Now, with that being said, there's one other passage of Scripture I want to go to, and then we'll be done. And oh, by the way, if you're interested in hearing my spin on this controversy within the body about whether or not it's okay to eat meat that's been sacrificed to an idol, I would highly recommend that you watch video 13, Double Trouble, Understanding Romans 14, because I go into that in detail in that video. Now, let's head over to Exodus 33. Exodus 33, 12 through 14, New International Version. Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your ways so I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. Verse 14, the Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. I will give you rest. Now, why did I bring up this passage? Well, it should be self-explanatory. We have the Most High God telling Moses, I will give you rest. And this is after Moses appeals to the Most High and says, teach me your ways. That's a lot like the Messiah said in Matthew 11, learn from me, learn my ways, and I will give you rest. But even so, I don't recall a single instance where Moses used this as a reason, as an excuse, not to keep the Sabbath. How come Moses didn't say, well, the Most High God said he'd give me rest, so he's my Sabbath now. I don't need to keep the Sabbath any longer. Of course, the Most High God is not talking about giving Moses a Sabbath's rest any more than the Messiah is talking about giving us a Sabbath's rest in Matthew 11:28. That's not the rest that it's speaking of. We keep the Most High Sabbath day to serve as a sign for the whole world to see that we are in covenant with the one true God who is the maker of the heavens and the earth. And that has not changed.
Hi, kids! Welcome to Camp Krusty! I'll see you in a few weeks. Until then, I've turned things over to my bestest buddy in the whole wide world.
Mr. Black.
I want you to treat
Mr. Black.
with the same respect you would give me. Now here's
Video 16.